I'm going to explain to all of you about the physiology of sleep in a unique way most of you have heard of. For example, most of the stuff your brain uses to sleep at night is actually made out of protein. Serotonin's made out of protein, dopamine's made out of protein, melatonin is made out of protein. So it makes sense then that if the stomach isn't working very well, that it actually causes the body's inability to regulate dopamine at night that makes you feel relaxed. And the neurotransmitters on the brain are actually also the same pathway. I've also seen people that have had dopamine deficiencies that it's actually their stomach. And so, because the stomach processes protein, if you make the dopamine out of protein, if the stomach isn't working, then you can't actually make the dopamine from that pathway. And so, if someone wasn't in a very relaxed state, we all know there's a fight or flight physiology, sympathetic, parasympathetic, rest and digest. Most of you have heard about that. If someone's mental state is not very calm and relaxed, it tends to dysregulate the digestion of proteins, which actually would eventually cause the inability to process dopamine and serotonin, melatonin, compounds like that. This is why a lot of people are very surprised that when they treat their stomach, they actually sleep better. But the deeper thing also is the mind and the stomach actually have to work in unison to get that to work. So there's a lot of things we also talk about. I won't go into this video, but about how to reshape the way the mind sees things, beliefs, ideas, things like that. I do want to go over all that stuff with you, but in another video, look for that video as well. But if you're not calm, it influences the stomach. The stomach then influences digestion of proteins. And if the body's stomach is not working very well because of the stress response or how someone is feeling, then we get a net inavailability of dopamine to be produced. As a result, some people notice like if they take enzymes or something like that, sometimes it makes them sleep better at night. That is the reason why. The other thing that happens is your stomach actually regulates acids to digest minerals. This is why there was a recent article in the Journal of the American Medical Association that there was a possible link to heartburn medication and hip fractures. And if you do a Google search on that, you'll see the stuff about it. But what it was that if the stomach isn't working very well, you can't digest minerals. The acids are not strong enough to digest the minerals. And then as a result, you don't absorb them. So if you think about this with things like magnesium, some people say, I tried magnesium, it didn't work. If you support your stomach and you take magnesium, you're typically going to see a difference in that. But if you support your stomach and magnesium all of a sudden works, that tells you that the stomach is actually the cause of that. But sometimes we see people have a nutritional deficiency. 50 to 70% of the population is estimated to be deficient in magnesium. It's a very, very high percentage. We'll make more videos about explaining that why. But another thing that happens is people say, oh, I took magnesium, didn't work, this, that, or whatever. The stomach has to regulate acids to be able to process the magnesium to affect the brain. So if that's not happening, we don't get sleep as well. The other thing I want to tell you is if any of you out there have done CPR, you typically know about how you have to tilt the head back to get the chest to rise in CPR training. And basically what it found is that if someone's sleeping with their chin pinched, it closes the airway. So to sleep at night, you also need the neck back to get the chest to rise. Those of you that have done CPR training know you have to tilt the head back to get the chest to rise to get that to work. It's the same thing with sleep, actually. I have seen people's oxygen go up just by changing their pillow. You have to make sure that the neck is back. This is also the reason that cell phones could be possibly not very good for you, is that if you're looking down a lot like this, you're actually cutting off the airway for oxygen. And so the ability to absorb oxygen ties into that and all those other things. But tilting the head back to get the chest to rise is very, very important for getting oxygen in the body. So when to increase oxygen, sometimes people do breathing exercises before bed. That typically helps as well. We'll make more videos about that. There's a breathing exercise I like on YouTube that's free. It's called the Wim Hof breathing exercise. And that's a free one that's been shown to help a lot of people before. Sometimes I have people do that 2 to 3 times before bed, and that typically helps as well. If that helps, make sure to look at how your pillow is stacked and think of opening the airway as well on that front, if that makes sense. So we have oxygen, airway opening, protein digestion, stomach, the way the brain works. I'm going to make some more videos as well to show you about the physiology of how the brain works for the emotions and things like that. And also, some people will take protein before bed and they'll sleep better. The reason it makes you sleep better is your neurotransmitters are made out of protein. But typically, if someone eats protein and they're not sleeping well, again, it goes back to digestion. And then the other thing I'll talk to you about in another video is that preservatives in food and certain chemicals are enzyme inhibitors. Also, hormonal signaling. There may be a link to microplastics now because they're actually called xenoestrogens. They may influence receptor sites that tell the brain how much enzymes to make in the gut, stuff like that. A lot of that stuff is coming out. We'll see how far those studies go. But be sure to watch other videos on microplastics and everything else in that. As far as sleep goes, a couple suggestions are see if you take, always clear everything up with your doctor. Always consult your doctor before doing anything, but make sure, try taking protein powder before bed. Try taking a good enzyme and magnesium at the same time. Enzymes are very heat sensitive to heat. Most enzymes we've checked over the counter were not any good because it's 115 degrees where enzymes, 116 degrees enzymes typically don't work. But a good enzyme mixed with magnesium sometimes will make you sleep, and that's because the stomach is now working better. Try breathing exercises before bed as well. These are a few of the basic things that I talk to people about that goes through sleep. But make sure try protein powder before bed. If you've done CPR, you know how the airway has to be open. Try to change your pillow to get the airway open. Even if you're laying on your side, sometimes it makes a difference. There's things like cervical pillows and things like that out there. So hopefully this is helpful. If you have any questions, you can always email our clinic and let us know how things are. Thanks again for watching.